It is the Anfield Wrap. We are in association with Peloton, slightly later day than Tuesday, but I think you'll forgive us if you'll forgive us when you look at the quality we've got around the room. We've got Adam Smith, we've got Josh Williams, and we've got Ian Ryan. I'm John Gibbons, and we are in association with Peloton for the rest of the season. Huge thanks to them for partnering with us. They are, of course, Liverpool FC's official strength and conditioning partner, but it's not just, football they focus on. Obviously, they're getting involved around the country, around the globe in terms of people's fitness, and they are partnering with the HOKA Hackney Half, and they're also giving away an unbelievable prize as part of that. So entry to the 2026 New York City Marathon. I know a few people have done that. Johnny Milburn of this parish, he's done the New York Marathon. Yeah, one or two others. They say it's an incredible experience. Pounding the streets around the Five Boroughs, and you can join them. All you need to do is go to onepeloton.com/WeRunHackney. That is onepeloton.com/WeRunHackney, and have a look at that competition. Good luck to Tash Dowie, who's doing that. She's all action, Tash, isn't she? In the Legends Games, getting stuck in, does loads with the foundation. She's absolutely great. She is doing the Hackney Half as well with Peloton, and they've also got a regular run club from the Peloton studios in London as well, so do check that out. Do maybe do the Hackney Half with them, and thanks a lot to Peloton for partnering with us. So today it was a bit of a funny one. Obviously no game over the weekend. The Man City game feels like a long way away on Saturday, so instead, I don't know if people noticed, but Liverpool Football Club, you've heard of them, they're doing a poll at the moment. It's called Liverpool's Greatest Poll, and you can pick your 10 best players you've seen, or whatever it is that your criteria is. They've asked some ex-players to have a go, and I think it's just gone really well, and everyone's really got into the spirit of it and enjoyed it. Jamie Carragher put his up, and a lot of people were saying, great insight, Jamie, really, really enjoyed that. So in the spirit that is being taken, I have asked the three gentlemen to pick theirs. I've done mine as well, because like Josh Sexton, I'm not a shithouse, so I've done mine as well. One or two might have misunderstood what I was asking, but we feel like we've got there in the end, and so we're going to start with the elder statesman of the room, the big dog. How did you pick, first of all, your top 10? Because different criteria for different people.
I mean, when you sent the email through, it was like that David Brent meme when he goes on that date and he goes,
I was expecting someone to go, someone's come. No, I told Neil, I've texted Neil I can't come. I was in the air, yeah, he's not got it.
Because obviously the heat that Carragher's had on the back of this, it's been quite the thing, hasn't it? But I don't think we'll get quite the same heat given our profiles. But
you never know, I'm not sitting your tenure.
But you know what, I think ultimately my position on this is, it's really hard, John.
Yeah.
And listen...
And are we lucky that it's so hard?
It is, because it just points to the fact that we've had so many great players. But also, I think if you ask me this today, and then ask me again at the weekend, there's a chance the list just moves around. Or maybe someone else pops on it, someone comes off it. I just think that's the very nature of this kind of thing, where it's a very personal thing, so people shouldn't get too upset. Hello, internet.
It's also just meant to be fun. Like, so much of football's graft.
Yeah,
and it's become not fun. And like having sitting around in the pub and going, oh, who's the best players you've ever seen, and having a bit of a row about it but in a nice way. Like that's like, it's meant to be a laugh.
100%. And one of the things I wanted to do, I've made one exception, but I wanted to have at least been alive for my list, because I noticed Jamie's, he's got people on there that he wouldn't necessarily have seen, but I think he makes a strong case for those people. So I totally understood it, and some of those people are legends of the football club. And I made one exception to someone I don't remember watching live, but the rest of them I will have done. But as I say, when I get to that exception, people will probably understand why.
Okay, so let's do it then. Do you just want to do the list, and then we'll talk about it? We'll talk about it. Just go from 1 to 10.
Yeah, I'll do the 1 to 10. Yeah, I'll do it now. Yeah. So
you've caught me off guard, there.
I know I wasn't expecting to be like this, but
I thought it was going to be 10s,
but I'm all right.
9s.
We could be in a fucking take, couldn't we?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I haven't just made this up a minute ago, so...
Someone has made up done it in a 10-1 order, so...
No, let's do it. Let's do it.
So I've got Kenny. Kenny is number 1, which I don't think is going to massively kind of shock people. But again, I know I'd understand if people have got maybe a other person top of the list, but it just felt, because I'm catching the tail end of Dalglish, but still kind of, say tail end, he's player manager when I'm watching Liverpool, and I'd seen him a bit before that, but obviously, to go and do what he did, not only as a player, and then to go and do what he did as a player manager and then manager, it's unbelievable, John. I mean, I still don't think it gets spoken about enough when he takes that player manager role and he goes and wins the double in his first season and
scores the winning goal.
So I remember, and I did this when I did What Football Means to Me with Adam, and I remember being in our little house on Markets Lane and just smashing the gaff up trying to recreate that goal against Chelsea when he takes it on his chest and he pops it in the corner.
Brilliant,
past Tony Godden, I think it is, using goal for Chelsea. And your mum and dad would come in and be like, what's going on here? I'm just trying to be Kenny, do you know what I mean? It was...
Can you go be Kenny somewhere else?
Yeah. So that for me, I mean, it is Roy the Rover stuff. And he was in the comic, wasn't he, Kenny, famously, you know, he'd feature in it and stuff. I mean, imagine that happening now with social media. A player... Like, you know, imagine Arteta as a player manager and when he won the double in his first season. I mean, it's not a world I want to live in, John, but you know what I mean? Can you imagine the kind of, the traction I would get now if a player, and bear in mind, when Liverpool go and do that in '86, you know, winning the FA Cup, it was, people might not believe it if you're of a certain age, it was almost on par with winning the league. You know, Liverpool had only won it twice before, in '65 and '74. So to go and do it as a proper double, not many teams have done it, and Kenny is obviously, you know, at the heart of that. But obviously all the stuff that goes before that, you know, it cements his place for me as the greatest.
Okay.
Number 2, Steven Gerrard. Again, I think people will probably either have him 1 or 2. I went for number 2 because I just think Kenny pips him for the reasons I've mentioned, but make no mistake about it, when you're talking about great players and all-time lists, you know, Gerrard will probably be in everyone's top 3, I would imagine. Unbelievable footballer, virtually won the lot. And those big games, those big moments that he had, I just don't think you can look too far from him for what he gave the club on the pitch as a captain. It was a big part of that 2001 season as well, which I love, to be honest, and that plays a little bit of a part in some of my other picks as well. But what a footballer. And I think when you've got like his peers who just speak about him the way they do, you know, people like Jamie, for instance, who had him at number 1. There's a reason for that. You know, he's dragged them through the trenches on more than one occasion. So, yeah, Gerrard at number 2 for me.
Keep going.
Barnes at number 3.
Okay. Now we're talking.
Yeah, I think people will have different views on maybe where Barnes would sit. I'd imagine most people of a certain age would have him in a top 10. I just think for 4 years he's arguably, with one exception, Maradona, I think he's probably the best player in the world for a certain period of time. And there's Diego, who's obviously just probably on another level from everyone else. But between 87 and 91, Barnes is untouchable. He's fucking untouchable. And people might say Gascoigne, and I understand Gascoigne was great. He was nowhere near as consistent as Barnes from week to week. He didn't have the same output. Yes, he did it on a big stage, World Cup, Euros and stuff, and he did it on the TV, Gaza, in big FA Cup games, I get that. But I think Barnes, whether he was playing left-hand side or through the middle, he was just unplayable. And he was my hero growing up as a kid. You know, everyone wanted to be John Barnes. He was that good a footballer. And he's part of that great 87-88 team, which is one of Liverpool's greatest ever sides. And he's absolutely at the heart of everything good about that season. There's other players as well who are contributing, don't get me wrong, but John Barnes is the superstar.
It's hard to, I think, describe what a rock star he was. I remember, you know, being quite young, but he was like, it was like Mo Salah, but on a lot more of a local level, because obviously you didn't have, you know, social media, so you weren't, you know, aware of this sort of global fan base that obviously, you know, did exist, not to the extent that it does now. But so it was smaller in that case, you know, than the Salah phenomenon, but it was every bit as, you know, real and as tangible in my life. Do you know what I mean? Like and considering you think about, you know, how much success that Liverpool had, you know, from the mid-60s onwards right up to that point, it's 20 years of dominance. Really, obviously, other teams came in and won league titles and things like that. But, you know, Liverpool were the biggest team from when Shankly first win the league right up to, you know, Kerry leaving. And so to be the main fella in a team that includes Ian Rush, that includes sort of Kerry sort of on the way out, Hansen and all those, and to be the one that everyone's like, yeah, but John Barnes, just shows how good he was.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we asked the Achilles injury, and he's only about 27 then, and he should be in his prime. You know, he joins Liverpool when he's 23, so he should be in his absolute pomp, and he's robbed of those future years, which would have been, for me, no doubt, it would have been glorious. And he maybe even gets higher up the list then. But as I say, for those 4 years, he's virtually untouchable. And it's such a shame that he has to come back as a different player, but he's lucky to even play again. You know, I've listened to him speak, and, you know, he's lucky he was able to kick a ball again. Never mind play at the highest level for a number of years in a slightly different role. But yeah, for those 4 years, my God, what a footballer.
Okay.
Rushy
4.
Yeah, Rushy 4. So I think, listen, he's Liverpool's top goal scorer with 346 goals, I think it is. So
that counts for something.
There was this thing where, you know, when I was growing up, if Ian Rush scored, Liverpool won. It was as simple as that. No, that was it. You know, if Rushy scored, Liverpool invariably won the game. Yeah, you're done, yeah. I think that changes I think maybe 87 in the League Cup final, where Arsenal turn a League Cup final round and win 2-1. But up until that point, you know, if Rushy slotted, then you were home and dry, really. But I think, you know, people talk now about, you know, pressing from the front and stuff like that. You know, Rushy was the master of it, doing it back then, before it was even a thing. And again, you listen to people who played with him, Kenny, Souness, people like that. They talk about him in such glowing terms. So not only did he have the ability to put the ball in the back of the net in a variety of ways, it was the work rate. But he turned up every single time and did it. And then he passed a lot of that down to the likes of the Fowlers as well, who then learned from him. So he was just a master of his craft. So yeah, Rushy at number 4.
Okay.
Salah at 5. So yeah, obviously a lot of controversy recently about Salah and where he appears on lists. And again, you know, you can make a case for slightly higher or maybe even slightly lower. I think it's a tricky one, but there's no doubt Mohamed Salah for Liverpool has been absolutely unbelievable. And what I've always loved about Salah is the appetite and the desire to kind of come back in unbelievable nick and not take anything for granted. And I think there's been times where I've looked at this current Liverpool team, and I think you can label it at a few of them, which doesn't potentially look great on the manager or some of the individuals maybe, where you're thinking they're not fit. Now I think Salah's dropped off in terms of his level for other reasons, but I don't think you look at him and saying he's not fit. The condition he's in, the way he's looked after himself, his desire, his hunger, that all plays into, you know, what is an unbelievable footballer. And I love the line from Jürgen when you spoke to him, where he comes back with a different skill. You know, that's just a guy who's just passionate about his kind of his craft and obviously wanting to be the best. And it's very rare, or I don't think I've seen many other footballers where that drive has been as prominent as it is in Mohamed Salah. So listen, you know, when you talk about this recent Liverpool teams that have got over the line and won the big trophies, there's no doubt, no, they're not doing it without Mohamed Salah. Souness next, what are we up to, number 6?
6.
So he's the exception where I didn't get to see him live, but there is so much footage of him, and I think if you're talking to people of a certain generation, they will sit you down and legitimately have a conversation with you about Graham Souness maybe being, you know, in the top 3.
My dad
maybe even first or second. I don't think that's far-fetched to say that. I think most people would always have Kenny number 1, but I think there's a case for people to say, well, he's number 2. And then you speak to fans of other teams from that era, and they'll just tell you he was the best midfielder by a fucking mile. You know, he turns up, he does 7 seasons, he captains into European Cup, there's 5 league titles in there, there's 3 European Cups, and if you're picking anyone, any player from Liverpool's past to go into enemy territory, you pick him first and you build around it. That's what you fucking do. And, you know, the footage is there for everyone to see, the stories are there, the tales are there. You speak to anyone of a certain generation. As I say, I'm just a little bit too young, but I couldn't have a list without him in there, just given how prominent he's been to the great Liverpool teams. And I say he leaves early in terms of you want him to be there a bit longer because he's still got loads to offer. Goes to Italy, goes to Sampdoria, and Liverpool invariably drop off in the league the following season because his influence was that great.
There's a year my dad reckons he wins the league on his own. He said that Liverpool weren't great at all and Souness just decides we'll win the league, and that's what happens.
Yeah.
Like, there's no influence on teams is sort of like there.
I think that's it. I think it's the influence. You know, a little bit similar to Stevie Gerrard, where he's capable of dragging others up to another level, and I think that was what...
He sounds a bit Roy Keane as well to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I never seen Souness myself either, you know, obviously, but the way people describe Roy Keane, which I did see, just an absolute lieutenant in the middle of the park. And that.
Yeah.
It always feels like Roy Keane with goals, Roy Keane with more goals.
Yeah. I think there's a mentality thing with these footballers where not only have they got it themselves, where, you know, you have to kind of respect their ability, because first and foremost, the brilliant footballers, the two lads we're talking about there, but as I say, the impact on others to drag other players up a level and get them over the line, and when it gets a little bit hot and a bit on top, you know, these are footballers who you back 100 times out of 100 to get you out of bother. So yeah, for me, Souness, he'd have to be in there. And then go Hansen next, who obviously just spans a lot of great Liverpool teams. Unbelievable, great captain, great player. You know, he was calmness personified. You know, in 1 minute he could be sweeping up the back. Next thing you know, he's marauding through the centre of Goodison Park and putting Rushy in. So he was just unbelievable to watch, and had injuries, don't get me wrong, towards, you know, the end of his Liverpool career, but to create that again, it's got 3 European Cups in it, it's got 8 league titles. You know, it's a bit weird that he doesn't quite have the same international career as maybe the likes of Kenny or Graham, but I think there was reasons for that, where you know, Ferguson takes charge of the '86 World Cup, for instance, and goes with Willie Miller and McLeish, and I think Jockey had pulled out of a couple of squads and then gets left out. He ends up with less than 30 caps, which is just mad for a player. He wins the league and cup double in '86, as I said, and doesn't go to the World Cup, which is a bit bizarre, but I don't think it takes any shine away from his Liverpool career, which is just stellar. So I'll have to look at my list. John, to get me next one.
Hansen 7, I think.
7, yeah. So 7 Hansen. I've got Van Dijk, number 8. So I wanted to make sure that, listen, I've mentioned Salah, but I wanted to make sure there was several lads who get in from what you would class as recent Liverpool because of what they've achieved. And I just think in Van Dijk's case, it's hard to talk about recent centre-halves and put anyone above him, to be honest. And I know the internet loves doing this, and they'll speak about others. And I think people like John Terry are really, really good defenders. I think they're great defenders. But I just think Virgil had the edge in terms of how he played, how front foot he was, the fact that you could put him on the halfway line and let him go one-on-one with attackers. You very rarely see that. So, as I say, I think someone like Van Dijk who came in and he was part of a little group that just transformed Liverpool and made them, you know, winners again. And him, along with a number of others, they were at the heart of that. You know, your interview with Chamberlain, which I thought was great, by the way, and it was just talking about the culture and stuff there back then, and you can just imagine that Salah setting that, Van Dijk setting it. There's a load of lads there who were just really kind of setting standards, and you can imagine Van Dijk was one of them, who every day training was really high. It was like a game. It was so intense, and that's what put Liverpool back in a position where they were challenging for the biggest honours. And you know, he's captain now, and I think, listen, again, if I'm being honest, I think he's tailed off a little bit this season, but I think that's just, you know, time catching up with him a little bit. But make no mistake, for a number of years, he was absolutely world class. Where are we on number 9? You know what? So number 9, and I debated this one, not because he's not a brilliant player, because he is, but again, is kind of how his life shone was maybe for a shorter period of time, but for me, growing up in the city and obviously being of a certain age, a little bit younger than this footballer I'm going to mention, he was just someone you looked up to, and that's Robbie Fowler. I just thought he was just a genius. I mean, you know, you don't get that nickname if you're bang average, do you? Let's be honest. And from the minute he breaks into the team in 93, 94, and he gets 18 goals in about 30 odd games, but then he's over 30 in 3 consecutive seasons. By the time he's 22, he's nearly on 120 goals. And he's 7th on Liverpool's all-time list. Easy to forget that. He's 7th on the all-time list. But for 4 years, before the injuries take the toll and stuff, he's an absolute genius. And there's a reason why you speak to anyone from that era who played with him or against him, including Alan Shearer, by the way, who was probably the number 1 the big dog at the time in terms of centre forwards, they all say Fowler was the best finisher by a fucking mile. And as I say,
Schmeichel says that as well, you know.
yeah, I mean, there's the game in 95, 96 where he obviously does Schmeichel at Old Trafford near post, and he thinks one over him. There's games at Anfield around that time as well, where he scored and 2 past him.
I think Schmeichel always felt like he had the edge over the forwards psychologically, and with Fowler he just didn't.
He just took it too early. He took them so early, but it was the variety as well. It was head, right foot, left foot. There's nothing he couldn't do. Again, he's robbed with injuries. You know, he has some bad ones. You know, the one against Everton, I think it's Thomas Marriott in goal, where Robbie ends up having about 7 months out on the back of that. And it's a shame. And listen, I've been fortunate enough to interview him in that studio just over here for the Anfield Wrap. And by his own admission, I think, you know, how footballers were living their lives back then just wasn't the same. And if Robbie maybe looked after himself a little bit more, maybe he gets to have a slightly extended Liverpool career. But it's still a good career. I mean, I talk to you about the 2001 season. For a lot of people, that's such an important season that people cherish. He's scoring in cup finals. He's bagging in 2 of those cup finals. So he's still getting Liverpool over the line in big games and contributing to the trophy haul. But I just think for 4 years, there's just nothing he couldn't do in front of goal. And he could be quiet for 10 or 15, and then before you know, bang, he scored 3. He was just a pleasure to watch. And as I say, of a certain age, you couldn't help fall in love with him. But he was, for those years, he was an absolute genius. And then for the last one, I went for Alisson. I debated this one a lot, to be honest.
Because goalies aren't real footballers.
That did come into my head. That did come into my head. But I just thought, again, I wanted to almost just have a few of the lads who've been involved in multiple 90-point seasons. You know, I think there's a 92 in there, there's 97, there's 99. That's fucking ridiculous, That is ridiculous. Liverpool were playing football of such a level that you very rarely see. And did it end up in as many trophies as it should have done? No. But there are reasons for that. But that's not the fault of these players. And they should have got a little bit more with a different bounce of the ball, with people maybe not doing things they shouldn't at other clubs. It ends up in multiple league titles, more European Cups. And by the way, the fellow we're talking about here, without that save against Napoli, that European Cup doesn't happen. He plays such a part. He's such an unbelievable goalkeeper. Transformational. The best I've seen in a Liverpool goal by a distance. And as I say, there'll be people who will have watched Clemens. So, and that's where I draw the line. I just included one I hadn't seen because I think, where did you draw the line?
Keeper Elisha Scott,
fucking, you know what I mean? Albert Stubbins, fucking hell. And a full couple of Sergeant Peppers, you know what I mean? Where does it end, John? So I think you've got to... I tried to keep it to just lads I've seen, bar one, for those reasons I talked about before. But in Becker, I think, what an unbelievable keeper he's been. As I say, a massive contributing factor to those great Liverpool teams under Jurgen.
Brilliant, I enjoyed that. Any just bubbling under before we open it up to the
you know what?
critique?
I think depending on what... I mean, you obviously said, listen, go where you want with this. I know I had to struggle with that, but you did say, go where you want with it. I mean, I think if you said to me, pick a Liverpool 10, and it was on ability alone, I think Suarez would get in there. Because natural ability, you know, I talked about Barnes, but you could put Suarez in that bracket of just doing things with a football that you're sitting there and you can't fucking believe he's done it. Yeah. You can't believe he's done it, but it's such a short time. And it doesn't end in a lot of trophies, if you want to use that as a metric. But I think Suarez is someone who, in terms of watching him on a football pitch, he'd give you unbelievable joy, and he'd be like, my God, what a footballer. And then he goes and does what he does abroad for Barcelona. But he's one. But there are others who I've just loved watching. You know, I had a massive soft spot for Sadio and Bobby Firmino. They were two players who complemented Salah so well. And without them, you know, arguably he doesn't get to the numbers he gets to, because they were so important as part of that team. So there are lots of others. But I think I'm all right with my list. I think I'm pretty happy with it.
I'm all right with it as well. Anything you want to query, note?
Not really. I mean,
move on?
He's just gave the caveats there. I was going to mention Firmino, and I was going to mention Mane.
They'd be close. They were unbelievable players.
Yeah, special players. I mean, but you can't. I mean, you realise there's so many. There's so many really good players. It's impossible to get them in a 10. So you know, and a lot of the lads that Ian's just mentioned, I've never even heard of actually. I've never even seen before, so I'm kind of representing Gen Z.
Well, you go then, represent the youth of today.
Well, I basically picked the Jurgen Klopp team, to be honest. I basically picked Klopp's 11.
It weren't bad.
It
weren't bad.
So yeah, it's similar though. Like I've just picked the 10 greatest players that I've seen play for Liverpool, and it's not the best though in terms of individuals. As you say, Suarez for me is the best individual I've seen play for Liverpool. But he just weren't here long enough, didn't win anything. You know, we had one really outrageous season from him, but beyond that, he just leaves. So he's not in mine. But I've gone for like a 10 greatest. So, you know, just number of appearances matters quite a lot to me in terms of representing the club and all that. So, 10. I'll go backwards.
Okay.
I'll go the other way. 10
Sexy,
for me.
This is going backwards, Mikey. All right, don't be fooled on this.
I've started off really safe and gone for Michael Owen, which I'm sure will go down well. But I was weighing up different players for 10, and there was a few in there, but I ended up going with Michael Owen. I mean, he wins a Ballon d'Or. Is he the Liverpool player to ever do that?
Yeah, well, he's at Liverpool.
Yeah,
Keegan wins it after.
Keegan wins it, yeah.
But he's gone to Germany.
Gone to Hamburg.
Yeah, well, you know, that's a joke in itself. And when I was growing up, that was like, you mentioned about Barnes being your hero, and that Michael Owen was really early for me. That was when I first started. I really recall Michael Owen scoring goals, and I had like season reviews on VHS and all that, and Michael Owen was prominent in them and stuff. And he played the game similar to how I liked to play the game when I was a kid. I was all about the goals, and I was really quick and all that, not the tallest and stuff. So I saw myself a lot of Michael Owen, and the goals that he scored for Liverpool. You know, he moved to Real Madrid. Showcases how the level that he was at and stuff. So Michael Owen's 10 for me, but we don't have to spend too long on him for obvious reasons. Do you know what? I forgot number 9. So number 9 for me is, let's have a look, Andy Robertson. I've gone. Liverpool, I've hated Liverpool left backs for my whole time supporting the club, to be honest. And he's coming, obviously, spent, what is it, 9 years or something like that at the club. And I feel like he really, above all else, just represents the city really well. Represents us really well. You'd think he was Scouse, I think. And the football that he's played, he's never injured. You know, really creative, worked in that system really well. Applies himself properly on the defensive end as well. That was some doubts that people had, you know, when it comes to... We've gone for 8 million as well, by the way. And he's won everything at the club. And even now, like, when he's kind of passing the baton on to Keifer, there's no like kicking up a fuss and like that about it. He's just like doing it quite graciously, and reminds me a little bit of Milner in that sense, where he's just kind of being a proper team player behind the scenes. So Robertson would be 9 for me. Number 8, the first thing I did was just list loads of boss Liverpool players that I've seen, and this fella didn't actually appear on that list. It was later that I was doing it. I thought, you know what, I should really include him. And it's Jordan Henderson. He plays like nearly, I think, just under 500 games for Liverpool in all comps. Obviously captains Liverpool throughout the golden era that I'm talking about, wins everything. I think he ends up at Liverpool for about a decade, all in. So I think his departure was a little bit unfortunate, but overall his contributions to Liverpool as a club for 10 years, you really can't argue with him. You know, the application, the drive, you mentioned Souness before, obviously he's not on the same stratosphere as Souness in terms of individual ability, but in terms of influence over the group and drive, and, you know, standards and all that sort of thing, Henderson was probably really, really big for that. Again, I'm probably going to get stick for this because Henderson is not viewed as, like, you know, particularly elaborate midfielder, is he? But I think for what he offered to the unit, as I've said, you see why I've done that one? I mean, I think he's got to be in there for someone who's seen what I've seen. He's got to be in there, mate. Do you know what I mean?
I'm into it.
Yeah, okay. I feel like I was waiting for some sort of doubt there, but
we'll do it later.
Okay. Next, Trent for me. Again, it's a bit sore at the minute for obvious reasons, but he wins everything for Liverpool. He spends, again, about, I mean, what's that? Was he 9 when he joined the club?
Yeah.
I think he was 9 years old. So,
it would have been.
You know,
He's been going even longer than that, but you can sign with you now.
Yeah, he spends most of his life at Liverpool. I think when he's retired, I think we'll look at Liverpool comfortably as his peak as well. I think Real Madrid are going to get the other side of that personally. And again, going back to the era that I'm talking about, the way in which he played, so integral to that era, you know, unlocking players around him, unlocking Salah as well. And just really different to anything that had came before, again, with right backs just being fairly standard for Liverpool and stuff. And I think anything that's going to come in the future as well. I think we'll always talk about Trent, especially on the ball, obviously, as just such a unicorn, so different to anything we've ever seen before. And that quarterback ability on the ball, I think we've lost this season, and we've struggled a bit on the back of it. So reluctantly, I had to include Trent. But yeah, I'm all right with that. I think, where am I now? Sixth. Mm-hmm. Sixth, I've gone Jamie Carragher. I mean, the number of appearances is a joke. Like I've just mentioned there how long Trent spent at Liverpool, and the you know, the matches that he wins almost single-handedly, and the trophies that he wins and all that. Carragher's appeared for Liverpool twice as many times as Trent, like double the number of appearances. And in that, you know, he wins a Champions League. He's on the floor with cramp and everything, but he's always available, never injured unless you're literally walking off the pitch with a broken leg and all that. I think similar to Robbo as well, I think probably more than any other player, I would say, represents almost what it means to be Scouse on a football pitch, I'd say. Just, you know, the passion, the commitment, so vocal. Captain, probably without the armband, I would say, for that era. Epitomised the whole Hoodier Benitez era as well in terms of his approach to the defensive side of the game and all that. And could play as well. People overlooked that side of his game, but he was really good on the ball and stuff, and obviously plays across the entire back line throughout his career. But mainly for the level of service, you know, I don't think you can underestimate that sort of thing. But it's in the 700s, I think, is number of appearances, which is just a joke. Yeah. I mean, some of the other players on the list you'd think had played quite a lot, but it's not even close to 700. It's not even in the same. Like Henderson, as I've just said, spends 10 years at Liverpool. I think he's up there with the most on my list, Henderson. But he's like an entire Roberto Firmino off Carragher, you know what I mean? It's a joke, like.
Maybe don't stick your list on Twitter.
It's like.
I think he's become like madly underrated. And
mate, I think Carragher's great.
Yeah, and I don't know what it is. Whether there's a little bit of. I think him and Neville, they both
downplay the careers.
They both got a bit of humility, so they'll talk about us and they'll say, I wasn't as good as them. And what they mean is, like, I couldn't do as many keepy-ups. Do you know what I mean? Or, like, technically, do you know what I mean? Like, Gary Neville, if you're not picking him in the Premier League 11 at right back, I think you're getting it wrong. You need to rethink. He was a brilliant right back. He wasn't necessarily the most gifted player, but in terms of doing that job and the intelligence and everything around him, he was a phenomenal footballer who I fucking hated at the time.
Do you know what they had, John?
They
were mentality, they were 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
They were an elite mentality.
But it's not just mentality. You're right. It's not just mentality.
Oh no, understanding football as well.
But I think understanding of the game, I think, is the key thing. When I watch football now, and sometimes you're watching them and you're like, they're just fucking stupid. Like so many of them, they've got all these skills and they've worked on this and worked on that, but they don't seem to understand. Right. This game needs this from me now. Henderson was great at that. Milner was obviously great at that.
Streetwise, isn't it?
Yeah, he's streetwise. Yeah, this game, right, we're 2-1 up and we're on 75. What do I do to make sure we go back in there with 3 points? And there's so many football, and there's a lot of them in our team now, by the way, who it might be better footballers than Carragher, who haven't got that. What do I do now that makes sure this ball doesn't even go near the goalie? And I think Carragher was brilliant at that, and he was so smart and he read the game so well. There's people saying, "Oh, he couldn't have existed." He'd have sorted it in any area because he was quick enough. He was good enough. He was good enough on the ball, like you said. I used to love his balls over to Torres. He'd hit them. You know, it wasn't quite visual in terms of the range, but you know, it's mad to me to think, and I think it's partly his fault because he sort of downplayed himself. It's partly just people who've not seen him who just want to decide things, but also I think, you know, there's certain things that you can't get from highlights packages, or certain things that you can't get from, you know, just watching compilations of someone, and street smarts just say that this game's dead now. I'm killing it. We're killing it, and I'm gonna sort of lead that. I think he's really missing from this Liverpool team, and probably generally from football now. This knowledge of how to just control a game. I always remember with Carragher, and it never really got sort of commented too much on the time. It was Ferguson. We beat Man United at Anfield. I can't remember exactly which game it was, but Carragher should have been sent off. He should have.
The nanny one?
The nanny one?
No, it was another one, I think. I think he basically should have got sort of 2 yellows. I think it might have been, but I think it was the Crouch one where we win 1-0, and then there's like, is this game? And Carragher, I think he got 1 yellow, he probably should have got 4 or 5. But he just sort of, he was always on the edge, he was really on the edge in the game. And then afterwards, Ferguson got interviewed like they did for the telly, and he said, he said, it would have been a lot easier if the referee would have had the balls to send Jamie Carragher off because he's their best player. And he just sort of said it like that, and I was like, whoa, that's like you know what I mean? He just sort of threw that in, and for that team, how much time for Ferguson to just go like very matter of factly, like it would have helped if they'd have sent their best player off. I was just like, that just shows, and he knows how to fucking win. Ferguson doesn't he, Christ? And he saw that in Carragher, and I thought that was always a thing that stuck in my mind.
I think you're spot on. When I talk about mentality and elite mentality, all of those things you just said there about smelling the game and understanding it and getting more out of other players, I wrap all that into that, you know what I mean? Getting more out of your teammates. That's a fucking unbelievable skill to have that. To be able to get more out of players. And that can sometimes be when you're not even playing that well yourself. You can have bad games, but you're kind of responsible for standards. And a lot of this is stuff that you don't even see, because the training has to be fucking shit hot every single day. And Gerrard and Carragher and others, they made sure the standards were all right. That you then take that into a match day. And I think that's something, again, you can talk about the current Liverpool team, you can talk about what's going on in the training of a week. Are they working hard enough? Is it as often as you want it to be? Because the minute it drops off in training, you see it in the match day performances. Yeah. And I think people like Carragher, they keep people honest, whilst also being able to play. You don't play over 700 games for Liverpool if you bang average, which is the term I've seen bandied around the internet. It just doesn't happen. You don't get to do it on good managers' watches like Houllier and Benitez if you are an average footballer.
And at the very top level, which is
winning
these
Champions League,
with these Champions League. I remember they used to say Carragher and Gerrard used to room together in European aways, which is just a mad thing, by the way. Like, give them their own room. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think they do now. I think they all have their own rooms now.
That's why they put the prices up.
But they used to, that's what you're paying for. Hotels are expensive. But they used to say, like, and Liverpool's record under Benitez and under Houllier away from home in Europe used to win everywhere, and obviously the managers take a huge amount of credit for that. But Carragher used to say, like, the night before, they used to go, right, this is on us too tomorrow. You know what I mean? They'd have injuries out or whatever. They'd have players. There were certain players who weren't maybe at that level, and they'd be, we need to get this result tomorrow. And they map out how they do it. Fucking, he needs this, you know what I mean? Like, imagine they would give a below down the bank, so whatever. You know what I mean? Like, he'll do this, so you need to watch him. And it'd almost be like Jamie, like, they talk about what Jamie needs to do to the defence, and then they talk about what Stevie needed to do, and make sure he's switched on, make sure he's doing this and stuff like that. They plot it all out, and then they go out there and do it. And like I say, the manager, I'm not dismissing the manager sort of in these things, but they just decide to box it. Are they going to box it? And then they boxed it.
But I think he is, though, the closest thing I've seen, still to this day, probably, to having a manager actually on the pitch and solving the situation himself and things like that. And I think the bang average stuff stems from, like, you know, there's no obvious aesthetic quality to him if you watch like a highlight reel or whatever. Like, he's not massively quick, he's not massively physically imposing, not brilliant in the air, didn't score that many from set pieces and like that. But as you say, it's difficult to put street smarts into a highlight reel. Like, a lot of it is just upstairs and understanding of the game. That's why he's so good at what he does now, because of that understanding. So yeah, I had to put him in there, and you made me feel a bit better about doing that. Where are we now? 5. I've gone Sadio Mane. I mean, ultimate attacker, really. Really industrious, nightmare to play against. Can go both ways, 2-footed, good in the air. I mean, just rapid in behind as well, can come to feet. I always go back to that time where Bobby has a spell where he's injured, doesn't he? And Diaz comes in. and Sadio Mane goes and plays like Firmino for a few weeks or whatever, for a few months, and he just does it, just dead easy, and like he can just, like he's watched Bobby do it for so long, but I think just expecting a player to do that, it's such a difficult role that to be able to adapt it like at the drop of a hat. And I think, for example, I'm not just digging him out here, but Gakpo had a go at that, I think, when he first comes in, and he's had a few attempts at being a false nine version of himself, and I don't think it's really worked, personally. So the way Mane just adapted and just did that, I think sums him up as a player. Just kind of got that warrior instinct about him, where he can adapt to any situation, can do anything in the final third, scored loads of goals for Liverpool, again, similar to some of the other players that I've referenced in terms of his availability as well, just constantly available, never flirting with, you know, a potential transfer move or anything like that, never kicking up a fuss, apart from that one day, I think it was at Burnley, wasn't it? Where he falls out with Mo. Yeah. But generally speaking, just a dream of a forward, and I think he averages a goal every 2 games or something like that over the course of his Liverpool tenure and stuff, so wins everything, another one who wins everything, so the reasoning for a lot of these players is the same, because they wouldn't the same fucking team. But yeah, I mean, Mane had to be up there, and just above Mane, I mean, you could flip a coin with a lot of these, by the way, but just above Mane, I've gone Firmino. I think he would be underestimated in a... I mean, he's underestimated generally anyway, but I think in a list like this, you'd find him beneath a lot of players, and I deliberately wanted to put him really high, because I think the area that I'm talking about, I think tactically especially, I think he almost defines it. People used to use the phrase of, like, you know, here's the system. And I think he genuinely was. Like, everything revolved around exactly what he did. He was the first piece in the puzzle almost. Then you've got Mane running in behind, offering goals. You've got Salah running in behind, offering goals from the other side. Trent, Robbo, you know, it just worked as a system perfectly. And it all stems from Bobby's initial profile, and then over the course of years and years, chips in with assists, chips in with goals, but mainly just the overall... I think Klopp came out with a comment once and said, like, he can play every instrument in our orchestra. And I think that was a really good way of putting what he offers. And I think specifically on the defensive end as well, you know, you can't underestimate that. I think we're seeing maybe a bit of a downside of that now. I think Ekitike is brilliant, but I don't think he's quite got that, like, horrible, you know, I really want to regain the ball here for my team nature about him. And you didn't have to tell Firmino to do any of that. He just did it off his own back. Just so good on the defensive end, and Liverpool gets to a point where they accumulate 90-odd points a few times with really good defensive records, and I think so much of that stems from him being like the first line of the press and so good at it. Just like having sometimes you've got like a player and you'll say, like, it's like playing with 10 men, because without the ball, you don't really move, you don't really do anything. I think Firmino was the opposite. It's like defending with an extra player compared to all the other teams you're facing because of how much he offered. Third, I've got Virgil. Obvious reasons. I mean, he's the best centre-half I've ever seen, comfortably as well. And that's not like a Liverpool bias. I just think he's unbelievable at everything. He's literally so good at everything. He can play, he can build from the back. He's got a cross-field switch. He's got a ball over the top. He's a leader. He's 6'4". He smells nice. he's good in the air. In fact, he's brilliant in the air. He finds teammates. He plays headed passes. Scores set pieces. Defends set pieces at the other end. Is quicker than you. Is stronger than you. Put him on the halfway line against any forward in the world, he'll probably deal with it. We've all seen that Kylian Mbappe clip. He literally plays every single game. I think over the course of the past, like, I think throughout Slot's tenure, I think he's maybe missed one Premier League game, maybe through suspension or something like that. Just the absolute ultimate centre-half. And I think if you was building a centre-half in a lab, you would build Virgil van Dijk, genuinely. The only thing that any Premier League centre-back might have on him is potentially longevity and maybe championships behind them. But other than that, I know there's been this stuff lately with John Terry and all that, but you can't tell me. Pick out one element of John Terry's game that he's better at than Van Dijk. One thing. Apart from his left foot.
You know, the only thing I I would say that he maybe had, I think
goals.
Van Dijk's the better player. No, not necessarily goals. I just think the only weakness I ever really see in Van Dijk is when he thinks it's too easy. Is when he just thinks it's a little bit too easy for him, and therefore maybe doesn't smell it as quick as he could sometimes because he thinks he can get across. He thinks he'll get back. He thinks he's got enough time because he's so good. Do you know what I mean? That's the only little chink in his armour. But as I say, you're having to nitpick here because he's so good and he's elite. And as you said, if you're creating a centre half, then you're not veering too much from Virgil van Dijk, in my opinion. I'd have him down as the best. But I think, and as I say, I don't think John Terry could. If you said to John Terry, do us a favour, like, play on the halfway line, he'd be like, he's fucking joking.
I think that's the thing.
He doesn't want to play on the half. He's great, but listen. He had a really strong unit in front of him. He had great centre-half pairings all the time as well, you know what I mean? It wasn't as chopped and changed as what Van Dijk's.
Behind him.
So, yeah, and as I say, but he was very much a penalty box defender, I think, John Terry.
Well, Van Dijk can do both.
I think the thing is, Van Dijk could do what Terry could do. If you put Van Dijk in that Chelsea team, Van Dijk could do what Terry did. Terry could not do what Van Dijk could do on the Liverpool team. There's just no chance John Terry is happy playing on the halfway line. It just doesn't happen. So you've got one goalkeeper, one defender who can do both of them, and one of them could only do what he did, and he was very bloody good at it as well. By the way, he probably is in the list of the best centre backs the Premier League's ever had. But he had to play in that way. There was no way you could change how he played.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a bit similar when you got the people talking about Scholes and Gerrard and the same thing, and even Rooney said this. You know, Scholes couldn't do what Steven Gerrard did in a Liverpool team, but Gerrard could have done what Scholes did in a Manchester United team, and that's a difference. And I think that's the Van Dijk Terry point. I think, albeit both of them are really top centre halves.
I think on the relaxed stuff as well, like maybe being a bit too nonchalant. I think part of that stems from a lot of the time it probably is too easy for them.
Yeah, there's a reason for it. But now and again,
I think it
you might get caught out now and again doing that, and it will happen. Do you know what I mean? But you know,
but it's like some players exude an overconfidence, and you're thinking, where have you got that from? That's who you. Yeah. Whereas Van Dijk, I think in a lot of situations, like, do you remember there was a moment a few seasons ago we played Brighton away, and there's a ball over the top in the direction of Connolly, I think is the lad's name, the striker. And Van Dijk deals with it by letting the ball bounce off his back and then just plays a no-look pass. Yeah. Absolute joke, honestly. If we're talking about aesthetics of centre-halves, Van Dijk's your highlight reel, man. Not Jamie Carragher, like. So, yeah, 2 left. I've gone Salah 2. I'm a bit conscious about speaking here because, for obvious reasons. Earlier in the season, I made my thoughts on Salah's interview quite known, and the internet being the internet, people have ran with that and came to the conclusion that I don't like him, or I've got something against him, or I hate him, or whatever it is. And this is probably a good platform for me to reiterate that it's total nonsense. Like, he's the forward that he's been for Liverpool. He's just the greatest forward I've seen play for Liverpool. He's absolute killer forward. And the stuff that I do as well, with the data and things like that, the tactics and stuff, and it ties in a little bit with recruitment and scouting and things like that. So I have to delve into that sort of thing every now and then. And it's not until you do something like that you realise like how much of a rare profile he is, the skills that he combines to be Mo Salah. Like, for a start, he's left-footed. Like, only 25% of players are left-footed, so that straight away narrows down the market quite considerably. Then on top of that, you've got the output, and the output is obscene. There's no one really that can compete with the level of output. And then on top of that, you've got the speed and the threat in behind, and combining those 3 things, that triple threat. You're left with an absolute killer forward who's a nightmare to face, and he's available all the time as well. And the replacements, the idea of someone succeeding him, Klopp said it recently, you can't. You have to do something differently. You have to change tack completely, because the idea of finding another goal-scoring wide player like that who favours his left foot, and by the way, if he's not scoring, he's creating, he's doing one or the other. It's virtually impossible. There's no one out there doing it. And he's available all the time as well, comes back, as you said, mate, every summer. in perfect nick. And similar to Mane, there's been no flirting with rival clubs over the years. You know, Gary Neville was talking about moves to Real Madrid a few seasons ago. He was like, Salah's going to do it. He's got that in him and all that. It's never materialised. He's just got his head down. He's worked. So I honestly couldn't be more grateful for what he's done for Liverpool. And I know in my head, at least, exactly what I think of Mo Salah. And believe me, it's only positive. It's I am going to miss him quite a lot. So believe me, don't believe me, whatever. I know that I think he's great. And that's if someone asks me about Mo Salah in 5 years, 10 years' time, whatever, it will only be good stuff that I can recall. But he is pipped to the top spot by the obvious Steven Gerrard for me. I mean, if we sit down and do a top 10 in like 40 years on the Anfield Wrap and I'm involved in it, I think Gerrard will be number one still for me. There's just no real shifting of that. Obviously, he wins so many cups virtually single-handedly. The Champions League, the FA Cup and all that. Gets really close to the Premier League but doesn't quite get over the line, but certainly deserve one. I think he's the best midfielder in Premier League history, personally. Could do everything, no weaknesses to his game. You know, if you want him to provide a threat in the box and score, he'll do that. If you want him to play right back, he can do that. He'll put a foot in, regain the ball. He can build moves for you. He played as an 8, he played as a 10, he played as a 6.
He's a season right wing, about 5 or 6, and he gets about 18 goals, doesn't he?
Yeah. Just a powerhouse of a midfielder, really, and epitomised my childhood following Liverpool. I think a lot of other players of a similar stature would have probably just got off. To be honest, the level that Liverpool were at that time, I actually worried thinking about what Liverpool's flaw might have been if during that period Gerrard weren't there. Like, where would we have? How low would we have fallen? Do you know what I mean? But he keeps Liverpool to a certain point, and he keeps Liverpool winning trophies and things like that, virtually on his own, as I've said. So he's immovable for me and he's obviously Scouse, which helps. So, but he's virtually immovable in that top spot. Yeah. Any issues?
Just can't believe you hate Salah.
Yeah, I think for Gerrard, I've got Gerrard very high. Will come to mind sort of right at the end. But I think for me, what separates him from other very, very, very good players for Liverpool is his record in finals is like it's stupendous. Like it's almost like it is like Roy of the Rovers, isn't it? Yeah. Like what he did in that West Ham game. Forget about the winning goal, which gets further out every time you see it. It's like the whole performance is just unbelievable. You know, the other goal that he gets is great. The whole, you know, what he does in Istanbul from half time onwards. You know, he scores in League Cup finals. He scored in the UEFA Cup final. Like it's
force of nature.
It's just unbelievable. And like, you know, even many top players just get one of them. So even really, really good players just get one of them, and he's got one in every competition, like a final that lights it up, you know. And it's something, and that's what makes him really, really, really special player, I think. Along with everything else that he had as well, the consistency, the fact that he plays his whole career. I agree with you. If you're saying someone's higher than him in 40 years, then I can't wait to watch him.
Yeah, I have some honourable mentions, by the way, as well. Alisson weren't even in mine, which I did feel bad about, but he is a goalkeeper, so I felt a bit less bad.
Yeah, I debated it, in fairness.
Yeah.
As I say, ask me next week and see what happens.
Yeah, Suarez as well, obviously. Torres and Coutinho I was weighing up, but just outside.
Okay. We're going to have a quick break before we do Adams. A few of our busy mates are doing the London Marathon, doing it for fantastic charities and just doing it to challenge themselves to be the very best versions of themselves that they can be. So a week or so ago, Neil sat them down and had a chat to them about how it was all going, and here we started. We're going to come back and slaughter Adam's list.
I am with 3 marathon runners. Not yet, unless one of them's ran before. We'll find out in a second or two. I've got Keifer, MacDonald, I've got Kieran, Molyneux, and I've got Emila Bona, all of whom are running the London Marathon. So let's get the first bit out of the way, and then we'll come back to it at the very end. What charity are you running for?
All the Hate Children's Charity.
What charity are you running for?
St Joseph's Hospice.
Keifer?
Hearts for Harry.
There we are. Okay, we'll come back and discuss the charities. That's the last thing we'll do. All right, that's the last thing we'll do. We'll come back round and let people know where they can donate to the charities. But I want to start off with the obvious question. Well, have you run it before, a marathon?
No, you've come close though.
I came close to running it, but not came close to running a marathon.
No.
I came
So Keifer, why did you decide you wanted to run a marathon?
Very good question. Now that I'm 12 weeks into training, is one I probably should have asked myself 12 weeks ago. But I think it's always, especially the London Marathon, is something as a keen runner I've wanted to run for years. And
so you were a keen runner before this process?
Yeah,
You'd run quite often. You'd run some distances. You've done 10Ks.
Yeah, like quite a lot of half marathons and stuff like that. But never anything like above 20, 25k. And then, obviously, the London Marathon is obviously one of the 6 major marathons. It's obviously really hard to get into. And I started a job at the BBC last year, and one of the first things that got offered to me was, they had charity places. One of them was for Hearts for Harry. And funny enough, it had come about a couple of months after the... so to get into London, kind of a general admission place, you apply, and it's things like a 1% chance. And it had come a couple of months after I found out in the ballot I didn't get a place. Funny enough, the weekend before that, I'd watched a documentary of my mum about the London Marathon, and she said to me, would you ever run it? And I was like, well, if I got the opportunity, I would. And then I think it was on the Tuesday morning, I got asked if I'd be interested, and it was kind of a no-brainer. So, it's something I've wanted to do for ages, but I didn't ever think it would be possible, really.
Okay. Why do you want to run a marathon?
So I never wanted to run a marathon. I stopped playing roller derby and then realised within about 3 days that if I didn't have a next goal,
You love a project.
I like a project. I'm a keen hobbyist. I think it's actually that I'm quite mentally ill, and I just need something like a goal on the horizon at all times. So this felt like it was enough of a challenge to do that, and it certainly has been.
So that you would just genuinely, so you finish playing roller derby, you cast him round for something, and you think marathon.
Yeah, well, so the day that I decided to stop playing roller derby, I entered a half marathon in a moment of crisis and sadness, and that was fun and fine. And I kind of felt like I want to try and do something that is actually like really fucking hard. Do you know, like something that feels like you can't. We were talking about turning up on the day and blagging stuff. It's something that like you cannot.
This is unwingable.
It's completely unwingable. It's something that there's a reason it's really hard. No, like you
I love winging stuff, but this just can't be winged.
yeah. So it's something that you've really got to like graft at and dedicate the time to. I thought that'll help my head.
Okay, and why did you want to run a marathon? And yours goes a bit further back.
So mine goes a little bit further back. So not last year, the year before, I went down with the run club that I'm a part of. He's a friend of mine who set up a run club a few years ago and sort of got me into running. But when I say got me into running, was like got me into doing the odd 5k and supporting him at his run club. And that grew into people getting a marathon place, and I thought I'll go down and watch them. And I ended up in the after party pissed and said I'll run it next year. And then they called me out on it. So I signed up for the 2025 London Marathon. Done all the training, got to the week of the marathon, and it fell on the same day as Liverpool winning that trophy. And obviously doing what we do, doing what I do, it was not possible. So I had to defer.
And also having waited to be in the ground for Liverpool to win the trophy.
Yeah, exactly, for a good 30 odd years of my life. I had to defer my place, which for me is, now I'm running 2 marathons, because it's not the race, that's the hard part, to be honest. Everyone keeps telling me I've not run it yet, but apparently it's not the race, it's the hard part. It's the 3 or 4 months of hard work that goes with it. So I had to do a full training block, and I was literally watching Crystal Palace and Arsenal on the Wednesday night. And every single Liverpool fan in the world didn't want it to happen then. Wanted it to happen in Anfield, and I was thinking, just happen now. And I can just because otherwise I've got 3 or 4 months of doing this again, because I am doing it for the charity, and that does make a big difference in your training. It makes a big difference in your mindset. It also makes a big difference in fucking it off, because I've done all the training, didn't happen, and honestly, when I got to Christmas and I was eating cheese and drinking red wine, I was thinking, wow, I have absolutely messed up here. And I got to January, and turns out it takes a few weeks or a couple of months off eating cheese and red wine, and then you can't run a 5k again. So I was back to square one. So I'm in deep here.
You've got to get this done.
Got to get it done, yeah. But luckily, Liverpool are going to win the league this year.
Well, they've got that boxed off for you, Kieran. Maybe that's what's going on. The lads were talking about it. There is, So we're recording this. It's mid-March. So right now. So what's the proper date? It is the
26th. Yeah.
26th of April. It's the 26th of April. Sunday the 26th of April. So there's still 5 weeks out as we record this. It's coming out in the international break, but there's 5 weeks out. So at the point of recording, it's 5 weeks out. I know the way this works, from talking to all of you really, the way this works is that you never train to do the whole lot. You do that, you go to a certain point and then you do it. So what's the longest each of you have ran at this point in terms of your training, Keifer? What are you up to?
At this point, last week I did 30k, so that's about 20 miles out of 26. So yeah, I think my longest run of the plan is 36. Obviously, if I get to a stage, I might push that 38, just because those last 5 kilometres or last couple of miles will be really hard on the day. So I think to try and get as close to that as possible is obviously beneficial. But there's obviously things that you can't plan for in training which should help you over the line, i.e. the crowd, the momentum, that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm in a good place, I feel like, but I've also given myself a bit of a buffer with like injuries, because I think one thing certainly I didn't realise looking from the outside in, I was just saying to Kieran before, it is like a full-time job on top of a full-time job, because you're running 4 times a week, you're having to eat well, you're having to sleep well, and all of us work in news or media, and you don't work a 9 to 5 job, so I work a lot of shift work, and just trying to fit in and around that.
How long did your 30k take?
2 hours 35. I think.
Because I just what strikes me about this is obviously then you've got time that you refer to it as being like a job. You've got time leading up to that, time warming down after that. And what strikes me is that is a half day in work. Yeah. When you actually stop to that's the scale of the commitment, how long this takes. It is such an amount of time to get yourself ready for it.
Oh, absolutely. And as you say, the things beforehand, trying to stretch properly, warm up properly, cool down. Even kind of the mental battle of getting yourself up and out the door. Putting your shoes on can be the hardest part of the run. So I think looking from the outside in, people think, oh, you're just going for a run. Or sound like it's a 5k, 25 minutes, but it is actually so much more than that. It's everything that goes around it. And as I say, you've got to fuel right, you've got to recover right. You're almost trying to train like an athlete, because what you're encountering 42 kilometers, 26 miles is a huge ask for a normal person. So I think to kind of fit it in, I think my plan will end up being about 17, 18 weeks, but there's been the odd week where I just haven't been able to get the 4 runs in. I might have done one, for instance, when I went to Marseille in January. That week's just a write-off. So even trying to balance, personal life, family life, other activities, it is really challenging.
What's the furthest you've run at this point?
Tell you what, this has got me sweating, this chat has. No, the longest I've done is 25, which is only like 16 miles. My big long one is the week after next. My plans changed slightly because I did get a relatively significant injury that put me out for a few weeks. But I don't eat right. I don't sleep right. My recovery afterwards is getting home and expecting to be welcomed home like a champion, and then having a baby going, "Mammy, Toy Story now." He has no concept at all of what Mammy is doing when she's out for several hours, and essentially is like, "You're mine the second that I'm home." But yeah, I've not done the big long one yet. The 25 was genuinely the hardest thing I've ever done, harder than childbirth, harder than any of it. And I feel like now I'm deep enough into the plan, because we're all in like the worst bit of it now, where it is just pure pain and misery. You can't enjoy any of it. Like, without a shadow of a doubt, this is harder than giving birth.
Okay, huge.
No, I've done 25. I've got 32 to do in 2 weeks.
So your 32 is going to be your longest one
my
before...
limit. I think I'm on like a pink plan compared to you guys. You're both going up to 35, but my limit is 32.
And then you're going to trust that on the day you're going to the momentum, the energy. I agree. I think you'd be fine. I genuinely think you'd be. 10 though.
People keep saying, "Oh, the adrenaline will get you through," and like I know adrenaline can get you through something, but I don't know if it can get me through another 10 kilometres.
We're going to find out.
We'll find out.
We will find out. We will find out. What's the furthest you've done so far?
So I done 35k last week, which is a little bit early. I've done 25 about a week, 10 days before that, and then I set out to do 28 to 30, but ended up a little bit far from ours. So I thought, you know what, I'll put the shift in now and do the long run. I'll be honest with you, I didn't do it at marathon pace at all. I've done it you're supposed to do so many miles at easy pace, zone 2 and all that with athletes now. We're in zone 2. and it was like a really, really slow pace, but I felt good, felt okay. So I managed to get 35 out. That was last weekend. And then I've done a little shakeout run on Saturday and then done some interval stuff on Monday night. And now my carbs are on fire. The thing is with me, I don't like running, which is a big issue. Yeah. Like some people, like you said yourself, you're a keen runner. I got into this through helping me mate with a running club. And I then found some fitness benefit from it and losing a bit of weight and everything that goes with running now and again. But running 35k is just not enjoyable for me. It's
What do you listen to when you're doing it? Just music, or do you have like podcasts?
No, I do.
Two Friday shows.
I mix it up. I have podcasts. I have playlists, and sometimes when I'm like in the Hurt Locker, I'll just put Beatles albums on and I know every word to, and it's sort of time goes a little bit quicker. But yeah, we are in the deep end of this, and there's also, I say, we're going away to Australia, so that in the back of my head when I was doing that 35k, I was like, look, I want to see where I'm at now, to see whether I can sort of manage that when I'm away.
You're going to probably have to get one quite big one in, aren't you, when we're in Australia?
I'm probably going to do a 30 when we're in Australia.
Yeah, you're going to have to pick your day, but I think there should be a couple of chances for you to be able to do that. By the way, we've been on the ale the night before you did your 35, and I was astounded when you messaged me the next day and said you'd done the 35, because we'd had a couple of pints, like.
Yeah, it was pints and miles. that's the
proper athlete, that.
Honestly, when he said, I've just done 35, and he sent me like the Strava thing or whatever it is with the map on, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that. Got that sorted out. So, what times, and it is a race, let's be clear, for elite athletes, and it is a competition, and it's a competition against yourself as well. So just out of interest, you know, I don't want it to be sort of one-upsmanship with each other, but for yourself, what sort of time are you thinking of doing it? And if you're talking about 2 hours, 2:35, you know, are you looking at getting in under 3:30?
No, God, no, it would be about under 4, so I think 3:50, 3:45, 3:50 would be a dream, but then if it ends up being like 4 hours 20, it's like, I think it sounds stupid, doesn't it? But just to complete it, just to enjoy the day. I think like, you know, one part of me, I'm like competitive, and like Emila said, you know, you kind of putting yourself through this. You want to see what you can get out of it, and I think it's healthy to go in there with goals and aspirations, because it keeps you ticking over in training, it keeps you accountable. But at the same time, I think like you're running one of the 6 major marathons. I think, you know, you got to enjoy that. My family's coming down. I've got family down in London. I think just like to make a day of it, without kind of being too beat up if I get, you know, 4 hours 1 minute, that kind of thing. But you know, if all goes well with injuries and training for the next couple of weeks, I think, you know, 3 hours 50 I'd be delighted with.
Okay, Keifer. Sorry, Kieran.
So last year's one was just finish it, because it was just an unimaginable distance, and then when I went through the training camp, I was like, I can try and get 4 hours here. And then when I got to the week before, I was thinking where you're at right now. Now I've done that, and I've done the 35, and even though it wasn't at such a pace, I probably think there is a 3:45, 3:40 in there if I carry on as I'm going for the next few weeks, feel right, stay injury free, which at the minute, I say my cards are on fire off Monday night, sleep well. So we've got 20-odd hour flight on our hand. I don't know how that's going to affect things. So I'm going to see where I'm at, and it genuinely is. I'm not just saying this. He's right. Just completing it for your first one. Just completing it is a big thing. It's not a humane distance to run. It's just not normal. And
the human body isn't made for it.
It's not made for it at all. And like, the things that can happen, you can hit the wall, you can get cramp, you can do your calf in, and there's all these things. So I don't really want to put a time on me yet, but I can hit paces and sustain decent paces at the minute. So if it goes well, then I can look at 3:45, 3:40.
What are you thinking, Emila?
So the same. I just want to get round, and I think like doing it for a charity helps with that. That you're like, my goal is to do it, and like the main goal is to like raise the money and do all of that. I'm tracking for about 4 hours, but I'm allowing for the fact that I'm going to get past a distance that I've never run before, and what happens in that. It's like Everest, you know, when you go above like a certain, what's it called?
Altitude.
Altitude,
once you go, like, you don't know how your body's going to react. And I think once I go past the 32 will help me have an idea of it. But there's no saying that once I go 35, just a part of my body goes, we're done. And I just have to like limp round to the end.
A big thing is the weather. So last year, it ended up being 20, 21 degrees. And I know some people who were really, really fit and were tracking for 3.5 and stuff, who ended up running post 4 hour marathons because it was that hot. And when it's that hot and there's people dropping and there's literally bodies in the street because and there's queues at water stations and everything that goes with it, it can be really, really difficult. So it depends on the conditions, depends on the condition of me. And the pints need to get knocked on the head as well.
So we'll do the charities. Emila, what charity we start at the top? You said how important the charity's going to be. I think charity is important for all three of you. So what charity are you running for and why?
Old Hay Children's Charity, because they're just absolutely incredible. I think any parent in Merseyside that's ever had to walk through those doors appreciates what an incredible resource it is. Like, the staff are all unbelievable. They must do some special additional training to be like part life-saving doctors and part like magicians and children's entertainers. And they like the way they put you at ease as a parent as well as looking after your child. And it's like no parent ever wants to be in there for any reason, but they somehow manage to make it so that the scariest experience of your life is as pleasant as it can possibly be, not just in the kind of like the basics of care that they provide, but they've got things like they've got the UK's only Medi-Cinema, which is like a full-on, like, looks like a multiplex, like if you went the Odeon, but you can wheel hospital beds into it so that there's no child in there that can't access it. Wow. They show like the latest releases, and like it's just little things that as a mum, like, you completely take for granted, being able to take your kid to the cinema. If you've got a child that is a long-term inpatient at Alder Hey, you miss out on so many normal parts of their life. Yeah. And like, I don't know, stuff like when I've been in there with a baby for like a slightly longer stay, they have like music teams that come round and do like performances for them and make you feel like you're not in a really scary place that you don't want to be. So it funds the research that they do, it funds the incredible facilities like that they've got and the innovation that they're doing there, and it's just like the most valuable resource that I've accessed as a parent, so I'd like to help them.
Okay, and so where can people find the page to sponsor you?
It's just a Just Given - Emila Bona. Emila-Bona.
Straightforward. Keifer, what charity are you running for?
So I'm running for Hearts for Harry, as I said at the top. So that was kind of like pre-arranged with the BBC, and that the places were kind of with what offered out. But essentially, the charity was founded by the parents of Harry Dubois, who in 2014 he was a 17-year-old, and he died of a cardiac arrest, I believe. And basically, his parents have set this charity up in his memory to basically offer free scans for children and young adults and males of a certain age to detect kind of underlying heart problems. I think one of the statistics that was quite profound was that 12. I think the age range was, maybe like 12 to 30-year-olds die a week of kind of unsuspected heart problems, which is quite a lot when you think about it. And I think in Harry's case, it was, they said how he was perfectly fine on a Thursday and Friday, and by the Saturday, he had unfortunately died, which is just, as a parent and as someone of that age, just completely unimaginable. So I think it's a really good cause. It kind of links into that fitness element of the training as well, of that, like, to be able to, as a touch wood, as a healthy 25-year-old, to be able to make my way around a marathon course, to do that, to kind of get people better screening and people who maybe do have underlying conditions that they don't know about. If I can raise a bit of money, which would maybe raise those issues and maybe make them aware to that, hopefully it can maybe help save lives or save people from kind of going through what Harry's family did. So, as I say, it's a charity, I think, that I think it's 12 or 13 people from the BBC running for on the sports team. So I think it's quite fitting really to kind of run a marathon for that cause.
And how do people support you?
So I think there's a what do you call it? A GoFundMe link, that we've set up as a BBC Sport team, which I'm sure we'll be able to share or send it you nearer the time. But yeah, it's just a straight donation on there.
Fabulous stuff, excellent. And then Keo, what charity are you running for?
Mine's for St Joseph's Hospice, and it came on the back of the care that he gave me, Nan, who I was really, really close to. She basically helped bring me up. I lived with her, and she was getting care at home. But then when she got really ill, the care went past what the carers could give at home, and we had to make a really tough decision for it to go into permanent care in the hospice. And I was sort of expecting a more hospital-like situation, and it really isn't. It's an amazing place, and what I found really, really striking was it runs off donations, and it costs around £11,000 a day to keep the place open. And it relies on donors and donations and little bits of funding here and there, but it's really, really expensive. And what the people do, similar to what Emila just said about the way they look after children in Alder Hey, the way they look after the elderly in this place is truly magic. And when people are terminally ill, to put a smile on their faces and have them happy and laughing and singing and all the things that go with it. But not just what they were like with me nan, is what they were like with me and my sister and our immediate family. They were amazing, and to the point where I think I spent about 11-12 days in that place towards the end, and they didn't blink an eye. They were making sandwiches for my granddad, they were looking after me, and I just know how difficult it is. And when people are going through the toughest times, to be able to look back at it as a fond memory is is really nice thing. So I'm going to do everything I can for them because I know how expensive it is and how hard they fight to raise funds. So it is something close to my heart, and it's justgiving.com/Keel.
There we are. 3 marathon runners on the day. I mean, Kieran might even have to do it out himself on our social media. But on the day, as and when they're running at the end of April, we'll find out who all 3 have gone on, and we'll let you know through all the Anfield Wrap different channels. Maybe we'll get them back in first week of May and have a chat once they've recovered and refueled and probably had a nice time as well. But huge congratulations so far to the 3 of them. Absolutely certain that you'll all do the business as well. See you in a bit.
Good luck to all those runners whenever it is. April, let's say April. Okay, on to you, Adam, your top 10. Feel free to start from 1 or 10, or just go 5 and go outwards.
Well, obviously Ian did 10 to 1 and Josh did 1 to 10, so I'm just doing no particular order. That's what I've gone for. Largely because I misunderstood the task, if we're all being honest.
No, we need an order. We're going to push you for an order. Come on.
I'll try and do a vague order as I'm going, all right? Where do you want me to start?
Number 1.
Okay, I was going to start 7. So number 1, Steven Gerrard. It turns out I'm quite Gen Z as well. Who knew? I've started as Gerrard at number 1. I think there are certain criteria I put in place, which is that I had to have seen them live. Was one of them, and there's some players that maybe would have been on the list, but for reasons of my personal animosity towards them for things that they may have done. Hello, Jordan Henderson. I've decided, and Trent have decided not to have them in. But, I'm not on Twitter anymore, so clip away. Who gives a shit? But Gerrard, I think, was just the personification of what as a young guy watching Liverpool, it was like what it would be to play for Liverpool, if you see what I mean, like that kind of thing of dragging the club up and just putting your all into it and everything. Like it just so happened that he happened to be an incredible footballer, but the way he went about playing in matches was what was such that he just accepted no quarter. Like he played with some dross during his time at Liverpool, and yet he's still got a trophy cabinet that's full of stuff largely because of what he did. Like Josh said before, like that I think that's just incredible, really. So, I put Gerrard 1 and I put Salah 2 because unlike Josh, I quite like him. I think he's. I mean, he like any conversation that will happen. Again, you say before in 40 years' time we'll get back together and have a similar conversation. I'll be dead, but it doesn't matter. Like Salah will be on that to be in a conversation where you're one of the best players that's ever played for Liverpool. When you look at the players that have played for Liverpool over the years, it's impossible to leave him out, I think. Like he's just incredible goal scorer, incredible provider, just like he comes across like a really good guy. Obviously Mike Kearney's close personal friend, so like just those aspects of who he is, I just think he deserves to be on the list, and I just couldn't put anybody higher than him, I don't think, when I was doing that, especially not now as I'm reordering it quickly in my head. And so I'm going to put 3rd on the list. I'm going to put Van Dijk because, just what he's been able to do as a defender is absolutely bonkers. Like it's just like to have to have assists that he's got in his game and goals that he's got in his game, and also just like there was a time when he went like 750 games without somebody dribbling past him or whatever. Like it was an insane number of games where nobody dribbled past him. Like that's wild when you actually think about it as a thing. That's wild to have that as a stat in your locker, to say nobody dribbled past me for 1.5 seasons or whatever it was he did. I get that's incredible. I'm putting him 3rd, and then so I've got Michael Owen on the list, who I think obviously he's a problematic character now in terms of he went and signed for Manchester United and everything that followed, and he left the club to go to Real Madrid. But I think part of my problem with what Trent did was he left to go to a direct rival. Real Madrid, we played Real Madrid in 3 finals recently or something like that. They are a direct rival of Liverpool. When Owen left, they weren't a direct rival of Liverpool. They just weren't. You could not say, and I know there's that irony of he left and then we won the Champions League, but it wasn't, it just wasn't the same thing. They weren't the rival of Liverpool in the same way that they are in the current generation. And he was just, when he broke through, it was electric. Like what people think about Ngamoa now, like, should be starting more, blah, blah, blah. I think Michael Owen's career is one that you look at and go, well, maybe he shouldn't, because Michael Owen would have been at the top of the game for a hell of a lot longer if we hadn't run him into the ground, because we were basically so desperate for him because we just didn't have any good players, basically. So there's the risk that by playing Ngamoa all the time, you risk him getting injured the way Michael Owen got injured, and then his career basically tailing off the way Michael Owen's career tailed off. But he was some player when he played for Liverpool. Some of the goals he got. I mean, he basically, if Gerrard can have the 2006 final, then Michael Owen gets the 2001 final against Arsenal, because that we did not deserve to win that final. Anybody just watch it back. We did not deserve to be in the conversation of winning that final, and Michael Owen basically won it for us. So yeah, I'm putting him in there. Firmino is on my list as well, because I know false nine is a thing that other players have done, and it's been around, since the dawn of time, just under different names. But Firmino almost reinvented what it was to be a striker in the Premier League. It was almost, it became the Bobby Firmino role rather than the false nine or whatever else. And he, alongside Sadio, I'll come to in a minute, and Mo, it was just electric what he did, playing up front but not really up front, so playing in midfield but not really in midfield, and just being able to score the goals that he scored and everything else. Yeah, I think he's just an incredible player. Mane, same sort of thing really, like so exciting, and as Josh touched on before, he came in as a right-sided player and absolutely tore it up. And then Salah arrived, and he was like, but Salah plays on the right. So Mane just went on the left and just carried on doing the same thing over on the left. Incredible. Yeah. The help he offered to Robertson as well, when Robertson needed help down that side, the work rate that he had, all of those things, he was brilliant. And then again, Firmino gets injured, Diaz comes in, don't worry about it, I'll just go down the middle and I'll just tear it up again down the middle. Like every single I think we all say we want a player who can play across the front line, but there aren't really that many players who can play across the front line. Sadio Mane absolutely could play across the front line. He was one of those players that he was a unicorn as a forward in many ways, I think. So that's why he's on there. Alisson, I've got him because I think I just sort of thought I had to have a goalkeeper, which is mad because it was just my own rules. But and I think he's the best we've ever had. I think he's just up there. I mean, he's the best I've seen definitely play for Liverpool. I think obviously older people could, like Ian might talk about Clements, things like that.
Fucking hell. Having this guy.
It's just the grey and the beard. I think it's just, he's just incredible. What he's, some of the saves he's produced at the European Cup that we basically won because we had him in goal. Yeah, like he's very much deserving of being on there. I'm going to put Jamie Carragher in next because, again, that Gerrard thing of what you want to see from somebody when they're playing for the team. And as you correctly pointed out before, Carragher plays down his own abilities now, but he was a very, very good footballer who also put his absolute heart and soul into it. And I think you see that now when he's commentating for Sky. He can't be doing with players who don't put everything into a game, who don't lay everything down on the line. And many years ago when apps were first becoming a thing on phones, there was an app that was Who's Your Celebrity Lookalike? I took my photo and Jamie Carragher was it, which it's important to point out that one, he had not blossomed into the handsome man that he is now, and two, I still had hair in those days, so that was it. But it also thought I looked like Morgan Freeman, so you can take it however you want it, really. But yeah, I just think he personifies what I want out of out of a player when he's playing for Liverpool. You just put everything on the line. That's what he did. And speaking of which, I think the next two, or the final two maybe, are the same. Andy Robertson, again, the left-back conundrum that Liverpool has long had. And I think it's been absolutely right to sideline him effectively this season. I think he's reached the point where playing too many games in a row is just not what his body can do, because he just puts so much into the Jurgen Klopp here. There are so many miles in his legs. But that doesn't take away from the fact that I think he'll be remembered as one. Well, I think the best left back that Liverpool had in the Premier League era, and one of the best left backs the club's ever had, which is again one hell of a thing to be able to have on your CV, basically. And he just comes across like a really good guy, a leader in the team, everything that you want from somebody, a captain without the armband, as far as Liverpool's concerned. All of those things. And then I think the last one on my list, I think I've done 10, is James Milner. We've got on there for exactly the same reason, that he's not one of the best players that Liverpool have ever had. He's not one of the, he wouldn't make that list in 40 years' time, probably. But if you want a player who's the ultimate professional, who will put absolutely everything into, you said it before about what do I need to do to get the points on the board, James Milner absolutely would give you everything. And he came on a free, and I think a lot of people were maybe a little bit snooty about that, really, because he was leaving Man City, so it was a little bit like, oh, he's not good enough to make it at Man City, and then he's arrived on a free and everything else. But what he did on the pitch in terms of being a leader, in terms of lifting the levels of what he expected from those around him, professionalism, what you give when you're on the pitch, I think James Milner personifies again what I want from a football. I think that's what it is, that loads of the names on the list are people that I want doing what I would do if I was privileged enough to be a good footballer and playing for Liverpool, like just refusing, giving no quarter, not allowing anything to any levels to drop from anybody. And I think if you take Milner out of the team, that maybe we don't win all the things that we win, because he's setting the levels in training every single day. That the old thing about him winning the bleep test every pre-season. That's if you've got a fella who who's like, I don't know, like 45 or something, and he's winning the bleep test every time, you as a player don't have any excuses. He gave nobody any 21, excuses. Yeah. Exactly. You're 21 and this fella's beating you in the bleep test. You've got no excuses, mate. You just haven't. So apart from maybe that's not the way lactic acid works, but I think all of the players, or the vast majority of the players that I put on my list, were ones that I thought, that's what I want. And if we had some of that in the current Liverpool team, maybe we'd be a little bit better off than we are.
Was that 10, Mikey? Have we got 10? We've got 10. Well done.
Score.
Yeah, first hurdle cleared. Enjoyed that. Enjoyed your reasoning. Enjoyed your working all out. Anything before we do mine quickly?
I really like talking about Sadio Mane. I know he didn't make my list, but I just think, some of what the boys have said there just takes you back to a player that was just, unbelievable. And I think I'm sure I'm right in thinking that Klopp and Dortmund could have actually got Mane before he goes to Southampton. And there was maybe one or two questions about whether he was ready, whether he was quite kind of had that elite mentality we were talking about before in terms of stepping up to a big club. And it just shows sometimes it's about timing, because when he comes into Liverpool, I mean, there's no backward steps. He's just unbelievable. And it's no coincidence that a lot of fullbacks had their worst ever game against Sadio Mane. So, yeah, there you go.
Okay, I'll just do mine very quickly. I've got Kenny, number 1. This is all players in my lifetime. Kenny, I didn't see too much. Well, I didn't see at all live for the first team. I think I saw him in a couple of charity games in the late 80s, but would have watched him on telly. But I just wanted to put him in there because I think for everything he's done for this football club, not just on the pitch where he was phenomenal, but just everything. I think he's been just a huge gift to this football club and this city, and I just wanted to put him at number 1. And then from there, I've put Gerrard at 2 for reasons we've discussed. I've got Mo Salah at 3, Barnsley 4, Ian Rush 5. I've got Virgil 6, but I found it hard to put him. I remember Paddy Fitz making an argument that he might be number 1. And I remember his argument was, I can't remember whether it was on a show or just chatting on a bus going to Wembley, but his argument was, he's probably our only player where you can say he's the best ever in his position. And he's like, because you could talk about Kenny, but he's not as good as Maradona. You could talk about Rushy, but he's not as good as Pele. Even Salah.
He's not Messi.
He's not Messi. Gerrard's not Zidane. Whereas Virgil, he's the one where you could say, I think, and obviously people might disagree with you. That's the fun of it. But you could say he's the best ever to play in that position, and it's a decent argument. But I'll let Paddy make it another time. I've got him at number 6. I've got Hansen closely following him at 7. Suarez, I've put him in man, and I've put him at 8 just because that is the single best season I've ever seen from a footballer. 13-14 Suarez, so I wanted to put him in there. I've got Robbie Fowler 9 and Michael Owen snuck in for number 10 for me, because I think in terms of winning games and influencing finals, and he's right up there in terms of what he did. So he sneaks ahead of Sadio for me, and I'd flared to be putting Trent in there as well, but Michael Owen. Trent would have been too controversial, so I put Michael Owen in there instead. So there we are. But it is funny, and I think when I am going to fill in the greatest poll, anyone could do it online. Go to liverpoolfc.com. Go on there, you can do it. I think I might put some of the older ones on there, even if I'm not seeing them when I actually do, because I think it'll be a little bit of a shame if it's dominated by recent players. But I think it's understandable that ours on there, so we've done it. So did we enjoy that? Was it reminded that it's meant to be fun?
Yeah, it was good. Enjoyed it.
Do you think we've influenced the internet to just enjoy it and just have a nice chat?
Maybe.
You can only achieve so much
I mean,
in an hour and a half.
We're only 4 men, so you know what I mean? So,
but listen, we've enjoyed that. Hope you have as well. Huge thanks to the boys for coming in, for turning up and fronting out and doing that, and for doing 3 great lists. Hopefully mine wasn't too bad either. Thanks a lot to Milo and Andy for making all this happen, and Mikey for helping out up the lids.